punch daggers, push daggers, pistol grip blades, and similar tools. We're going to be talking about that today and whether or not it is a practical tool to carry for self-defense, especially for those that have some sort of boxing or striking background. I'm going to discuss the pros and the cons. We're going to discuss some of the more popular designs that are out there. The last video that I did was talking about boxing with a blade, and at least 4 comments were talking about how these types of blades would be optimal for the techniques I was showing. And so today I would like to discuss that, break that down for you. I will also be answering some of the questions that were in the comments because it's very important for mindset and truly understanding what we're providing on this channel. And so I hope you enjoy this video. Let's break this down. Today's video, I'm taking 3 different types of punch or push daggers, and I'm going to discuss different things to consider. And it's important that you have different sizes of these types of blades because it emphasizes the pros and the cons when we start talking into things to consider. The entire purpose of today is to give you a different perspective on the carry and use of these tools. And they will allow you to make a good, educated decision on whether or not you personally should carry it or if someone that you care about should carry it. We have 3 that we're working with. First one is a smaller blade like this. There is a Benchmade push dagger that I like. It's our medium-sized blade. And then Skallywag had this punch dagger that we're going to be working with. The T-handle design, as you can see, is basically the understanding that this is what it fucking looks like. It's a T, right? So when it sits in your hand, the thought process is that with proper distancing and boxing skill, you'll have the ability to throw a shot, a jab, or if you're fighting here, throw a cross, and in turn, it's going to hit that person with a straight line shot, do the damage, create distance, maintain distance, and it is an optimal style of blade for that. Now, the understanding of the ergonomics of this, as well as what happens when you actually insert it into the body in multiple different scenarios, is important to take into consideration. Now, the first push dagger that we're talking about is this. This was designed by Jack Nevels, and the whole thought process was this is a get off me blade. This is a one-time use thing. Now, when we are talking about these types of tools, I am 100% on board with carrying tools that allow you to get to other tools. And that's what this was designed for. Somebody's in your face, maybe took you down, you access this. This is an excellent tool with its Kydex sheath. What happens is there's like a little notch right there that keeps it intact. You can have this as a neck knife. You can have this in your pocket with a lanyard, so when it pulls out, it just works. This can go right behind the belt buckle. You put one of these through one of the holes in your belt, and it works really well to be hidden, and you pull this directly out. The thought process is that it is flat on top because in certain states, if it goes to a point, it is considered an actual dagger. And a dagger has almost no place for self-defense or utility use. So what happens is that there are certain states that talk about that the tool that you have that you can carry on you is more focused towards utility work than it is self-defense. When you think about it in self-defense, if it is designed to harm someone, and I know this is a stupid rule, but if it is designed to harm someone, then it becomes illegal. This is one of the problems that a lot of people that are watching from Europe or other countries, they fall into, because if they carry anything that's designed or has the intent of harming another individual, then it is considered illegal. So what can they carry for self-defense outside of things that they use on a regular basis? And so by going flat, it in turn kind of like gets away from that. This is a get off me tool. So the idea is, got my little skull here. The idea is that I take this blade, and because of the width of it, it isn't going to go here like this, right? So if it goes through the eye socket like this, it will not penetrate properly, but it's not designed like that. It's meant to be like a key. The key goes sideways into the eye socket like this, once it penetrates through all the way behind, once it penetrates through the eye, just like that, and it goes all the way behind, it's going to bury into that hole or orifice there. Then from here, you would twist so that it gets caught behind the ridges of the skull and the cheekbone here, and then you just let that fucker go. And while that person is trying to rip that out of their eye socket, then you can go to a real knife, or you can go to your pistol and deal with whatever scenario that is there. But that is what this design is meant for. And I personally think that if you carry a push dagger for that purpose, you are right on track. The problem starts to become when you start thinking that you are going to have multiple shots with a push dagger, and I'm going to explain why in a second. All right, so I switched out my bob here for a different upper body, the one with the arms, to kind of talk about the fact that when you have a T handle like this, the thought process is that I'm going to be in a position where I'm at a distance and I'm just going to punch and bring this back, right? I'm gonna pop, pop, and then it's going to create distance. And if I were to use it in that fashion, it would be optimal, because that's the best scenario possible, and I would cause damage. And if I had enough range, I could pop his hands just like this, and everything would be inserted at its proper 90-degree angle, or proper insertion so that it lines with my wrist properly, and then it locks in. You can even do slashes from the outside, cutting in, cutting down, pushing forward. You know, like, thing is that these types of cuts, if the edges are done properly, work in. But even that right there, like if I could get you to feel what it feels like when I'm doing that, the T-bar itself starts to rack from side to side. Like if I hit any harder than that, it's going to hurt my hand going side to side, because your hand is not designed to take that type of impact from side to side, okay? So if any type of motion where I'm grappling and then I hit him like this, and then he starts to move in any direction, right, left, whatever, and this gets embedded in bone, it gets caught up, like if this drives through like this, see how that is wrapped around the material, right? If I try to pull this out, what'll happen is if he starts to move at the same time, it's gonna get caught. Where does it get caught? It gets caught right here where there is no cutting edge. If that in turn is buried in and I start to go here, he starts to move, my ability to hold on to this and pull this out may be compromised. Let go. The blade itself is torquing from side to side. The issue that I have with this is that because the concept is there, like on paper, it works. Like I understand the reason that that's happening, but what I don't believe a lot of people do is they don't take their designs and they don't take like dead animals, or if they had the ability to get cadavers of humans or test it out for real, they don't actually apply the type of angles in self-defense scenarios that are actually there. If I am surprised by this attack and he, say, takes me down and I draw this out and I stab him in the gut, the likelihood that when we fall, this is going to drive backwards and I'm probably gonna lose this blade is higher. If I stab him in the arm, which that didn't even penetrate, if I stab him in the arm like this and he goes like this and rips this back, if the angle of this torques in any direction like that, not only is it going to potentially hurt my fingers, but it is also going to disarm me. Now, the thought process, at least that I have, is that when I have a blade in my hand, it is meant to be a close proximity tool for a number of scenarios. But my primary long distance tool is always going to be a firearm. Whether or not it is the firearm that I am taking from this guy or the firearm that I carry on my person, the thing is that I need to make sure that I do not injure my hand so that I cannot actually use a tool that's designed for long range. And that's one of the things about the striking that we talked about. some of you started to just discuss like certain people advocate to strike with the bottom 3 knuckles, the thought process that me striking with those 2 knuckles, like I was saying, is not the way some boxers traditionally struck. It leans towards old school karate. And to be truthful, the answer is correct. Those are correct assessments. Like, I am taking from old school karate. I am taking from the Okinawan full contact martial arts, where the Okinawans had to deal with samurai. And when they dealt with samurai, it was the shitty samurai with the wooden armor. And so in turn, when they practiced, they had to break through the wooden armor. And once it fell, then they could hit that same spot and then in turn cause damage. Now, one thing that people don't know, that don't study history within martial arts, is that one, board breaking was focused on that type of environment where the person that you are fighting has wooden armor, because the shitty samurai had wooden armor. They didn't have metal armor. So if you wanted to fucking kill that guy, you needed to get through that. So all of the board breaking that you see, as long as it is a single or a double layer of wood, in turn made sense. Anything past that makes absolutely no sense unless you are just trying to condition yourself for the thought process that by breaking 5 boards, you could break 1 easily. The thing is that once they hit and that board went away, if they hit them again, they would hit their ribs. If you ever thought about traditional martial arts and were like, hey, you know what? Why is it that they do a lot of this striking to the ribs or striking over the top and they don't strike to the head? It's because the lack of calcium in their system that they were dealing with in Japan, Okinawa, that type of thing, at the time that these martial arts were prevalent. There was a lack of nutrition. They didn't have the same nutrition we have. They didn't have the same bone density. They couldn't absorb the same type of damage. So when you hit them in the ribs with a proper strike that could break through wood, it would hit the ribs and it would crack them and then splinter them. And when they splintered, the splinters would go into your vital organs. And by doing so, it would cause death. And the thing is that it would cause shock. They would go unconscious, and that was it. And so when you start thinking about when I'm striking with those 2 knuckles, the reason I lean into that area is because that is a realistic combat martial art that was used for actual self-defense scenarios. When we start talking about the boxing, the bare knuckle boxing, it is a sport through and through. And yes, some of those guys did get into altercations and they used bare knuckle boxing. But the thing is that when you start to think about it, you don't want to strike certain ways with your hand or else it'll damage your hand. And if you need to transition to a different weapon system, you're not going to be able to. And that's the reason why I focus on those 2 knuckles. It's also the reason why T-shaped blades like this are probably not the best thing to do, because when you hit, if there's any type of movement or you fall, I mean, think about it. If I pin this guy up against the wall and I throw a shot and he blocks this and it goes up and it goes into, say, drywall that's behind him, or if he's on the ground and I strike this directly down and I miss, or even if I penetrate through his shoulder and it hits concrete underneath him and it torques my hand, what's going to happen to my hand? I'm going to fuck it up because of the design of the blade. Whereas when you have a blade, and it doesn't have to be this blade, but if you have a blade and you do the same thing, the likelihood that you're going to hurt your hand when this torques from side to side is almost 0. The thing is that there's nothing that is breaking the integrity of my grip in this situation. And any time that I have to, I can roll this in one direction or the other and it will slice through. And because there's no choil on this, if it penetrates into the body, I can roll it and it's going to cut out of that scenario. So all of that cut through. And the thing is that when this goes into the area here, because there's no choil. And if you don't know what a choil is, the choil is that piece right here that is not sharp. So whenever you penetrate this through the body, the cloth, the skin, all of that gets bundled up down there. And the likelihood of that getting caught when you're trying to rotate it is high. I've done a video on that if you want to see it. But the thing is that in these scenarios, that's the reason why I have this, whether that's in an ice pick grip, right? Like this, cutting down, cutting up, or not. If I throw a shot and I'm cutting and this goes directly in, what happens is that's a little bit easier of a technique to pass on with limited disarming and damaging of your hand than these T-blades. And so that is the first thing. Now, adding on to that, there are certain blades that I think they're designed very well for the audience that it was focused on, or the clientele it was focused on. So for example, you have things like the kernel blades. These are blades that are actually really well designed because the angle of the blade is, if you look at your fist, it goes up at an angle. And there is basically a trigger guard that locks it in. But the same thing's gonna happen when it penetrates. So I'm gonna use this as that example. Even when this is striking properly, when it goes into the body, because of how forward this blade is from my hand, that trigger guard is still going to rock from side to side. If I hit and drive all my weight for whatever reason, if I fall or he falls or whatever, it's going to hurt your fingers. Like this is something that happens when we start doing like pistol disarming techniques in close combat or defensive tactics. You'll have trainers like this. These are made by CLANTON Combatives, and I'll have a link in the description if you want to grab some of these. But the thing is that he, on request, will take this trigger guard off, right? He'll cut this off here, so there's nothing but the trigger. And the reason for that is when you're doing high intensity training, the likelihood that the fulcrum at the front creates so much leverage that it racks into your hand and your finger gets caught inside of that is very high. And so a lot of trainers opt to take that out. I'm not one of them because I fully believe that trigger guard is very important when you start talking about self-defense and disarming. It is very important to apply that leverage in your training and to understand where the weaknesses are. But the same issues that you're gonna have with this, when it goes back and forth, when it gets ripped out of your hand, when you're fighting with it and that type of thing, is going to be applied if you have a blade that's designed like the kernel blade is right there. All right, so for our second consideration, I want to talk about whether or not this is a decent boxing enhancement. Taking a push blade or a push dagger, placing it into your hand, and then utilizing boxing skills, kind of along the lines of what my last video was. Now, just to clarify, the last video was talking about taking somebody that had skills in a combative sport like boxing or kickboxing, and even talking about later on wrestling and grappling, and then placing a blade in their hand. The entire premise behind that is not creating blades that are very specific to their skill set. It is to identify what is the easiest path for them to integrate blade work into their already established skill sets. Giving them a blade that is designed around their skill sets does not actually fit the requirement that I had in that video. The thought process was, if I were to take somebody who had skills in striking and then I were to teach them more traditional Filipino martial art type edge weapons, would they be able to integrate that into their decades of training that they have already established? And as I stated before, a lot of times that does not actually happen. What happens is they go, oh, that's great to know that, but they leave with a skill set that they cannot integrate well. And so the thought process behind the video, the concept was, how do I teach somebody with those skill sets a very easy introduction that is going to allow them to explore on their own and through later training blade work? And so when we start talking about push daggers, you are providing a very specifically designed tool for a specific skill set. All right, so, but let's just move into that. Like if you have a boxer and you place a push dagger in their hand, what are the scenarios within self-defense that they are going to be able to utilize this? Okay, so the idea is that we are in an altercation. And the altercation is going to be something, or the violent scenario is they are presenting a threat that is they're presenting a threat of great bodily harm or death to me. I'm going to draw my punch dagger and I'm going to get into a boxing stance. And from here, I'm going to start working. Now, I'm placing it in my right hand because if I'm going to use a tool to save my life, because that's what this is, person is posing a threat of great bodily harm or killing you, and then you're going to place the tool in your hand, the likelihood that you're going to place it in your non-dominant side is very low unless you are immediately transitioning to a more superior weapon such as a pistol. So I'm placing it in my right hand, which means that if I'm in a boxing stance, I'm either like this, okay, where I'm throwing my jab, okay, or using my hand to grab, and then I'm going to throw a right hand either through a cross or an uppercut or a hook, and then I'm going to just continue using this as my enhancer to my boxing, right? Or I'm going to be in a position where I'm going to place the blade in my lead hand because it is more accurate. And so what happens is what was my cross is now my jab, and I am in turn going to be throwing shots like that. That is optimal, but the optimal part about that is the distancing. So I'm going to be at a far distance here that's just outside my normal range, and I have to practice being able to pop and go here. The reason that this is not as much of an enhancement that you think is because if I'm used to throwing here, if I place a blade in the hand and I have not practiced with this extensively, the fact is that I'm going to make contact with a hard surface before I'm used to closing my hand, which usually means that the blade is probably going to rotate in here. So the distancing is different because in order, if you know anything about striking, I don't close my hands like this and punch here because it's slow. My hands are fairly open, and at the last second, I close my hand to be able to hit and absorb impact. And then from this position, I'm here. So in order to do that at that speed, your hands are going to have to be slightly open to be able to do that and then punch as you work it. So the distancing is a little bit different. The other thing about this is that you're going to have what they call anchoring issues. What an anchoring issue is that when I punch and it goes through, it's not going to be as easy for me to pull that directly back. So I punch and then all of a sudden it's caught. I'm used to striking and immediately going to my combos. So you're going to go boom, boom, boom on your motion. But when this gets anchored, that's not going to be what happens. This is going to, see how that keeps getting caught? So I'm here, that's getting caught. Now I could throw shots until I could finally rip this out and then throw a hook. But these are issues that happen with our striking that you have to train around and understand that just like that first consideration, that's going to be rotating in. And it's not feeling great on my hand. But as you see, the more damage that I do or the more times I rotate, the likelihood that it does get caught in that position is there. You can find push daggers that don't do that, but it is rare. So moving right along, we're talking about the combinations, right? So whenever you're used to boxing, you have that ability to throw lots of combos. And my whole part about it last time was if you take a blade that is fairly small and that can sit in your hand well, you could throw combos in the same way and not have to worry about this getting caught, because when you're striking and you're going directly through, this is going to slide in. The same thing, if I have an ice pick grip, it's going to catch, and then I can start working these types of motions. Now, obviously, that's not how I would box, but I'm starting to rotate that into slashes. The issue with thinking that you're going to be doing combinations is that you would have to practice getting stuck all the time. Whereas this isn't going to get stuck until I bury the blade like that. And with a knife that has no choil, this coming out is going to be a little bit easier than it being forward. The torque on my hand is not going to be as much. So the likelihood that I would damage my hand is not as much. So combinations with your boxing is going to be limited. The next part about this is that we are assuming, can't believe I just cut that. We are assuming that it is once again inside the optimal range, which is the intermediate range of fighting. In self-defense, the entire thing that you focus on, or the entire premise, is that you are ambushed. You don't see it coming, and you have very little time, even with good situational awareness, to identify that you are in a fight. And what I mean by fight is like where one person is going to be seriously injured or die. We're not talking about a sparring match that you have at your dojo. We're talking about a real fight. So in that violent scenario, that person who is assaulting you or attempting to steal something from you or whatever it is, they are picking the most opportune moment to attack you. You are not going to be in the optimal scenario. Your thought process of the fact that, yeah, I'll be able to keep distance and I'll jab that guy away. And if there's multiple guys, I'll be able to keep them off of me and then still be able to throw shots. And my blade is not going to get caught up. It's not going to get ripped out of my hands. That's wishful thinking. And I don't know any professional that actually has that type of mindset that's actually successful. That would be arrogance, that would be pride, that would be thinking that you could control all aspects of a scenario to keep yourself safe. And that's just not how you should be training. And you should understand that no matter how prepared you are, that Murphy says that it's when you are least expecting it, that's when it happens. This is one of the things I talk about to individuals when we start talking about concealed carry. Like, you need to carry something that you'll carry all the time. Even for a short trip down the street or down to your mailbox, that needs to be on you at all times. If you have to dress up to put that pistol on you or that knife on you, and you're like, I need to go get the mail because, UPS just dropped off something at the mailbox, and you're just gonna put on some basketball shorts or something like that, and you're like, I'm not going to put a knife on me because it's going to hang, whatever. And then you should go down to the mailbox. Murphy says that's the time that somebody's going to walk up to you and go, hey, fucker. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I didn't dress for the occasion. And in turn, you're going to be lacking. It's the same thought process. Whatever you're thinking as far as your preparedness, you are going to be at an extreme disadvantage. Prepare for that scenario so that you can get out of that and you can make as minimal amount of mistakes as possible. The fact is that if you are in the self-defense scenario, you did make some sort of tactical error prior to it. It's what allowed them to get close to you. You are probably going to make multiple more mistakes in the process of trying to get yourself out of that. So you have to consider that if you need to have an optimal range, or there's an optimal amount of assailants, meaning it can only be one, can't be two, because if I hit with this guy, this is going to rip out of my hand. Now I'm going to be unarmed against a second guy. That might not be the best thing for you to carry. All right, so on the very last part of this consideration, as an expert in personal protection and self-defense, I need to address the fact that even professional boxers do not throw straight line punches in fights. There are plenty of videos that you can see this with, but I've picked out two in particular. The first one is a fight that happened in an interview between Hasim Rahman versus Lennox Lewis. Many of you, if you watch boxing at all, should know exactly who Lennox Lewis is. But let's watch that clip now and let's see how they actually fight in an actual brawl where they are not protected by a referee, ring, and all this other stuff.
What is that? Say anything you want. What?
All right, so Hasim is actually a very accomplished boxer. He has an extensive background. He's been champion multiple times. And the thing is that everybody should know who Lennox Lewis is. These are two of, at the time, the best boxers in the world. Some will consider Lennox Lewis within your top 5 greatest heavyweights. It's arguable, whatever. All I'm pointing out is that these highly trained boxers, when they got into an altercation, they resorted to grabbing each other and pushing each other instead of striking. Not a single strike happened during that entire time. The next clip is going to be a brawl that happened after the fight was called against Floyd Mayweather versus John Gotti III. So let's watch that clip now. All right, so the individual that's considered the greatest boxer ever to most people, even though some people will say that he ran away most of his career, doesn't matter. He is a technician in boxing. In this scenario, you saw him throw a couple of punches and none of them were straight down the center, even though that probably would have been the most effective thing. His opponent, Gotti, threw giant, wild, looping punches. The entire purpose of showing these two is not to address or to make fun of their real fights. The point of it is that these are professional boxers, spent their entire life learning how to throw proper combinations. Their hooks, their uppercuts, their jabs, their crosses, all are supposed to be pristine. And in their boxing matches, they are. But as soon as it breaks away from that, so that it's a real fight, a quote unquote real fight, what happens is because of the stress, because of the penalty, because there isn't someone that is going to be there supposedly, their stress level as it rises degrades their technique. And the thought process that someone that isn't at that level is going to pick up a blade like this and stay crisp and clean on their straight line shots and rotations is highly unlikely. Now, could it happen? Absolutely. But the likelihood of that happening is very low. My entire reasoning of placing a blade in the hand and showing boxing combos was not the thought process that is how clean or crisp those shots would land. It's because that it doesn't matter how those punches are. Those could be large looping punches, and in turn, it's still going to be effective with the style that I showed. If you take a blade like this that causes damage to your hand from side to side, and then the other types of blades, and you don't stay within proper form, the likelihood of you severely damaging your hand is going to be there. And so that's the purpose of those clips. Let me know what your thoughts are. Have you seen those clips before? What do you think about their form after they got into a real fight? I'm filming this after completing the entire video, and I realized that it was very long. So we are breaking this discussion up into 2 separate videos. This is going to conclude the first part. It's a little bit past halfway. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know your thoughts so far. If you have any questions or things that I should elaborate on, or things that you think that I'm missing the mark on. I will see you in the second video.